Hi, I'm Marty Cohn, and welcome to episode 21 of PR Benefits, a show that explores the role of public relations in the COVID-19 era. I've been a PR practitioner for over 45 years, helping a wide array of organizations successfully communicate their messages to targeted audiences. I mistakenly thought that 9/11 would be the watershed event in my lifetime. Communicating in the aftermath of that tragic event was challenging. Then came the global economic downturn in 2008 with more lessons in crisis communications. However, 12 years later, we have the coronavirus pandemic, and new challenges in uncharted waters have emerged. My guest today is Amy Smith, founder and president of Right Ideas in Washington, D.C. Now, let me tell you about Right Ideas. Right Ideas has 25 plus years of experience helping clients in retail, hospitality, technology, and more tell their story across all media channels. The firm has created and managed thousands of grand openings and events, publicity campaigns, and strategic alliances, and has implemented millions of dollars in value-added media. Amy incorporates social marketing tactics to add a powerful viral marketing component to many of her clients. 4 times, the firm was part of a collaborative effort that achieved PRSA's Silver Anvil Award. And Amy won the National William Randolph Hearst Writing Competition and was an invited panelist at the Association for Education in Journalism and Mass Communication Conference. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you, Marty. Wow, humble. Thank you.
Oh, stop. You did all those wonderful things. But you know what's missing from that introduction? How did you get started in public relations?
It's a funny story, actually. Okay, so I went to Northwestern. I went to the Medill School of Journalism. So I was trained in traditional journalism, but I was always drawn to sort of the business side of publishing. Even when they sent us to a newspaper Northwestern's still on the trimester system. So when they sent us for a few months to work at a newspaper, I went to the head of the journalism program and I said, please send me somewhere where I can work in the advertising department too. And they said, it's kind of a non-traditional request. And I said, no, I'm really interested. I had been the advertising manager of the Daily Northwestern and managed a team of salespeople. So I loved publishing and I loved writing and I knew journalism, but I don't know, something about the business side was like a magnet to me. So after Northwestern, I went to work at DDB Needham, which is a big part of the Omnicom, I think at that time, big advertising agency. And it was kind of like a boot camp for all different facets of the advertising world. I was in account management working on, I worked on some of the Clorox brands and just launched the Liquid Plumber campaign. We interviewed plumbers. That was really a rough part of my career, let me tell you, in interviewing hunky plumbers. But anyway, that was fun. I worked there for a couple of years, had great training, and I had also had an offer outside of college to work at Family Circle magazine in their advertising department. But I had turned that down because I really believe in learning and training and educating. But I had stayed in touch with the publisher, and I finally took the bait, went over to Family Circle magazine, and I managed their Midwest territory for sales. So I was working with brands like Pillsbury and Hormel Meats and General Mills, not General Mills, I'm sorry. Well, yeah, General Mills, I believe they were in Minneapolis. But anyway, I was going back and forth to Minneapolis every couple of weeks, and that was really also very exciting. I grew up in the DC area. I always wanted to get back here, and my family's here, and I always had sort of this idea that eventually I'd leave Chicago and come back to the DC area. So I did. I came back here to start an advertising program at a magazine called Export Today. It was all about exporting. So I was traveling all around the country and setting up their advertising program. And I was still doing some freelance work though. I was doing a bunch of writing and I was working on, I had a bunch of writing projects. I've always loved to write. So I had a couple of clients where I was working sort of nights and weekends on the side. And eventually I thought, I'm going to take the risk and start my own business. So that's when I launched Right Ideas. In the beginning, it was really a lot of writing projects. I was doing collateral, brochures, newsletters, that kind of thing. And a couple of people had asked me to write a press release here and there. And to me, I saw it as just another story. But I remember the first time a client asked me to actually pitch a story, I was working for a wholesale florist. And the client came to me and said, I'd like you to really do a press campaign for me. And I said, nah, I'm not really trained in PR. And he said, Amy, you know journalism and you know sales. I've seen you do it. You can do PR. So that was it. That was how it started. And that was kind of the beginning of what blossomed into a great career. And that was the start. That was the launch.
And we're glad that you did. And we're glad that you did. All right. So I'm going to now take you back a little bit in time.
Okay.
Okay. I want you to go back in time to pre-COVID-19. So that's like February. All right. All kidding aside, what are some of the highlights for you of your pre-COVID-19 career? Pre-COVID-19.
Many. It would be way too many to talk about in a 30-minute podcast. So when I started Right Ideas, my tagline was, what's your story? Because my idea was going to clients, finding out what someone's story is and helping them tell it was what I was all about. And that tagline has followed me really throughout my career. If I had to think about some of my favorites, when a client comes to me and says, I want to tell my story, but I'm not exactly sure how to, that's my sweet spot. That's my absolute favorite kind of project. And I've done that many, many, many times. I've done, like you said, many, many grand openings. That's telling a story. That's helping launch your business into a new community. I've had a lot of media campaigns over the years where people have come to me and said, I'm not quite sure how to tell it. So having been a journalist and also a publicist, I know what it's like to kind of be on both sides of the desk. So I feel like I love putting that together. I love seeing what will sell, how do you sell it, how do you build a media list, all that kind of stuff. But some of my favorite, I'm really dating myself a little bit, but as you know, I had a long run with Blockbuster, and even though they're no longer in business, thanks to Netflix and all the streaming options, I had a wild run with them. And I do remember one of my career highlights was when Titanic came out on DVD many, many years ago. They pretty much would say, here's a concept, do something with it. So I went to the Spirit of Washington in DC. They have a 600-person boat. And I said, I'd like to have the boat one night, and I'm going to run a campaign called Get That Sinking Feeling. We're going to promote Titanic on a boat. And they said, well, we'll give you a wing of the boat. And I said, no, I want the whole boat. I want all 600 seats. I promise I'll bring you value. And they said, prove it. So I showed them the last few campaigns I had done. And I said, look, you can get millions of dollars of value added by pitching media, getting stories. And so they let me do it. It was phenomenal. We had celebrity lookalikes. And so I loved that campaign. But some of my really favorites are the ones that kind of touch the heart. Did a great campaign through Teamworks for Make-A-Wish, where we were helping grant wishes to terminally ill children. And that was really, really special. There's nothing like seeing a young child who, their days are numbered and they're being treated like a king or queen and helping get the word out. I loved that campaign. Here's some of my other favorites. I'm trying to think. I love working with what I call change makers, people who are really making a difference. There's a local organization called the Teen Angel Project. I love doing the first PR campaigns because there's nothing like seeing someone in the headlines for the first time. So that was kind of fun. I've been working for 7-Eleven since 1995 for their corporate office and also their local folks. And that has also been very interesting because not only have I gotten to promote Slurpees and Big Gulps and Big Bites, but they've been involved in some really interesting community service initiatives over the years. They had a long-time literacy initiative many years ago where I helped secure Faith Hill to come give a concert. And that was a long time ago, before she was a huge star. And that was a lot of fun. We had a bunch of kids on a metal stage right in the nation's capital, right there on the mall. And storm clouds started rolling in. We heard a little bit of storm. I said, a little bit of rain, we can get wet, but lightning, I can't have kids on a metal stage. We heard lightning. So my entire team we were taking kids off a stage, like one in each arm, like sprinting as Faith Hill is sort of drenched. And I think she was pregnant at the time. It was a scene. but promoted literacy in the process. So that was really cool. I'm trying to think of what else. I guess as I've launched some additional chapters in my own business, it has been very, very fun and gratifying. I think, I launched the Mom Teeny Lounge, which is a parenting website. And I did that at first kind of as a passion project because I'm a parent, got 3 kids. I loved reporting. So I started to report on parenting topics. And I had sort of this light bulb that said, I really like doing family-friendly projects. Like I said, I loved working with the Make-A-Wish kids, and I loved working with things that were kind of family-oriented. So I launched a marketing to moms component of my Right Ideas firm, and that was really cool. I got to work with many companies that were trying to promote their businesses to either kids, parents, families. That was really a lot of fun. What else? And then I guess my biggest professional light bulb going off was when I launched Power Hour Editing about 7 years ago. Launched an editing division. Again, love to tell stories, love to help people tell stories. So here I'm coaching college and graduate school bound students on their essays and personal statements. And like I tell them in the beginning, it's a merger of my career. It's really journalism, which is great storytelling, and public relations, which is selling in a competitive marketplace. So I love that. That has been an incredible part of my career and something I'm very focused on. So
those are all exciting highlights. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
And the other thing that's really nice is you're excited in telling those, which is a whole story in and of itself, because it sounds like you really enjoy what you're doing.
I really do. I love working for good people. That's something I decided. Like I said, many years ago, I decided you can either ride the bus at work or you can drive the bus at work. And I just really decided, over time, as you get more expertise and connections, and your media Rolodex gets more and more golden over the years, your contacts, your database, all this good stuff, you really can decide what it is that you want to do and where you can make the biggest difference. And that's really what I'm focused on, is just telling great stories and helping other people tell great stories is something that I love to do.
All right. So now I'm going to make you come a little bit more current. So
Yeah.
what are you doing? What are you doing for your clients during COVID-19?
Okay. So a big part of my business pre-COVID was events. People, shoulder to shoulder, sampling food. Can you imagine someone walking around at a 7-Eleven grand opening and sampling food? I mean, and we actually had 2 big events scheduled in March. And one of them, it was interesting, one of them was mid-March, and it was kind of like the headlines were coming down. We weren't quite sure what this thing was really all about. And we actually made a game day decision the night before to cancel one event. It really broke my heart. It really did. We had another store that was opening inside of a mall. Big news, big story. And, the mall kind of shut down. So we shifted gears, a lot of social media, because this is where, people are home, they're in their pajamas, they're in front of their computers. And so talking to people online has become a huge part of what I'm doing. It's very interesting. I've worked for a lot of medical-oriented companies during COVID. When it first launched, worked with a company, a biometrics company, launched a thermal scanning platform where it takes your temperature, the little dot on your forehead. So launched their first PR campaign and did a major blitz for them, which was really a lot of fun. Worked with a concierge doctor, physician, part of a concierge physician network about sort of lifestyle medicine. That was also very interesting. They had a good story to tell about the different lifestyle elements, which I think people are really focused on, boosting immunity and all that good stuff. What else have I done in COVID? I did just engage another medical company. It's interesting. I've done some medical over the years, but all of a sudden it's like medical. What else? Social has been big. So I've been working on some Facebook advertising boosts for clients where you're geo-targeting right to where the store or business is and trying to talk to people right in that neighborhood. That's been big. And my Power Hour editing business has really blossomed, especially during this time period, because because of COVID, the standardized testing is in a horrible situation. We had 1 million high school juniors not able to take the ACT and SAT. It's stressful. So their essays and personal statements are all of a sudden becoming a lot more important as a data point in the application. So that has really been a huge part of my business as well. So pivoting, it's all about the pivot, right?
So, but let me ask you something that you said. So you're using more social media than before. In terms of the traditional media, what is it, because the traditional media is more focused on just COVID things, or is it just there aren't as many reporters? Why do you think you're not using traditional media as much?
So the thermal scanner that I mentioned, we did use I'm trying to think, Business Wire for that one. So relying on a wire at this time, I think, is a really good strategy, because there you get sort of guaranteed results. You know it's hitting. We also augment that with calling newsrooms. But what I found at the beginning of COVID, really mid-March, late March, the reporters are, first of all, many of them are working virtual, if not all. They're not in the newsroom. So they're not picking up the phones. So a lot of them I have, personal emails. So I'm kind of reaching out that way, or through Twitter. Reaching out through Twitter is a great strategy, actually, because that maybe you'll get them, but they're not answering the phones as much. So I think the wires are important. And when I was getting people on the phone, I was hearing things like, we're really focused on COVID. They always rely on some excuse in the newsroom. So we're really focused on COVID. And then also race relations are huge. There's a lot going on, and rioting. And I'm in a top 10 market. So, we have rioting in DC. And so that is more important to them than talking to a publicist about a client's story. So it's really tough to get the ear of a reporter right now. And I think that relying on other methods is what we need to do.
All right. Well, that's a segue to my final question, which is, we're going to get out of this. I mean, I have to believe we're going to emerge. What do you think the role of public relations is going to be to society as we emerge, as we begin? And I watch this is air quote, a new normal.
Yeah, I know. I love the air quotes. I tend to overuse air quotes in my writing sometimes. That's funny you say that. Okay, couple things. We have to stay relevant. I mean, just like we have throughout our entire careers, we must stay relevant, and we have to pivot. I mean, I know it's sort of a cliche term, but we've got to look for ways in our businesses that we can pivot and find new revenue streams, new ways of becoming relevant within our industries. And look, you and I are in a group where we were talking offline last week, what are the growth industries? Who is growing at this time? Clearly, there are certain industries that are going to win and some that are going to lose. And I think that looking for the winners are important. But I think we have to be realists as well. If you think about, big companies are downsizing. So if you're downsizing and you have a 20-year, tenured marketing professional on your team, are you going to fire this person, or are you going to retrain this person and say, hey, you're kind of like my first client said to me, you're a marketing pro. You can also learn PR. You can. Most people are not trained in traditional PR. They have core sales and storytelling skills. So I do think that we will be replaced in the PR world by some people. And I think unless we can be relevant, continue to add to our toolbox, and look for ways to creatively collaborate, it's going to be a tough time for a while for PR. So growth industries and pivoting, I guess that's all we can do, right?
All right. Well, Amy Smith, founder and president of Right Ideas in Washington, D.C., thanks for coming on to PR Benefits.
Thank you, Marty. I appreciate the invitation and wish you all luck and success in all of your endeavors as well. So,
all right. Okay. All right. I also want to thank Rich Melanson at BCTV for helping to edit the show. Rachel Cohn, my daughter, who is a professor at Ball State in art, and she gives me some technical assistance in the podcast, and also Twin Musicom for allowing me to use the music Hack the Jazz that you hear at the beginning and the end. I think it kind of sets the tone. I'm Marty Cohn in Vermont. Stay healthy.